Hello guys, welcome to the show. It's your boy, Your Truth will set you free. Hashtag SFTS, search for the symbols. I want to give a shout out to all my supporters, everybody who subscribed, everybody who hit that like button, everybody who leave me comments. I thank y'all, I appreciate y'all so much, and thank y'all for your support. There's no me without you, and I cannot express it enough.
Hello guys, welcome back to the show. Today I want to talk about one of the biggest tricks played on the black community in history. The video name is How Alex Haley Lied and Made Black People Believe They Were Slaves in Chains. This is one of the biggest tricks ever played on the black community. When we grew up and we were watching the movie Roots, and we all thought that, wow, this is how slavery happened, and this is how our ancestors was in chains and how they got whipped and how black people tricked other people into being enslaved. But it was all a lie. Alex Haley told a big lie, and he plagiarized the entire book. It was all forged, it was all plagiarized, it was all fiction, not nonfiction. And this is crazy, and we're going to go into how Alex Haley constructed this big lie and played it on the black people, and the effect that it had on the black community to this day. Because to this day we have this picture in our heads of slavery and how it happened when it didn't happen like that. Slavery was like a job. Being a slave was like having a job. Sometimes your family member was your slave owner, you know? But Alex Haley got our minds so twisted into thinking that we got whipped, we got hit, and that we were in slavery in this way, like we got kidnapped, put on ships, put in chains. The whole image that we have of ourselves is all because of this Roots movie. The visuals on this movie are so vivid. I remember being in school and watching this. They used to make us watch this in elementary school, and they used to pump this into our heads. It came a part of the education system that you had to watch Roots, and you had to believe that your ancestors were stuffed in boats, shitting and pissing on each other and throwing up on each other, being fed slop, and how black people set us up and gave us to the white man and shipped us to America. This was a very devastating lie put on the black community. They put it in the schools. They made us watch it. They made us have an imagination of what they wanted us to be. They put all this money into this show to vividly show us what they wanted us to think of ourselves. The 1976 publication of Alex Haley's Roots, the saga of American family, marked a significant moment in American literature and culture, particularly regarding the representation of African American history. The book, which blends fact and fiction, or faction, as Haley termed it, tells the story of his ancestors, yeah right, tracing lineage back to Kunta Kinte, an African captured by slave traders. Despite its success, selling over 8 million copies, an inspiring and critically acclaimed television miniseries, Haley faced legal challenges regarding plagiarism. In 1978, novelist Harold Corlander sued Haley, claiming he borrowed from Corlander's work without proper attribution. The case was settled out of court. The controversy surrounding Roots also led to scrutiny of Haley's research methods and factual accuracy, with subsequent challenges from other authors and historians. However, the impact of Roots on American consciousness remained profound, as it prompted broader interest in African American history and literature, influencing future works by diverse authors despite the disputes over its classification. Roots is often recognized for its cultural significance and imaginative storytelling. The publication of Alex Haley's Roots, the Saga of American Family, in the U.S. bicentennial year of 1976 was a landmark event. The book's publisher, Doubleday, planned what was, for African-American author, unprecedented initial print run of 200,000 copies, but that printing quickly sold out in its first year. Roots would sell more than 1 million copies, leading to Haley's receipt of a special Pulitzer Prize. 25 years later, the book has sold more than 8 million copies in 28 countries and had been translated into 33 languages. Haley called Roots faction, or a mix of fact and fiction, and later referred to the work as symbolic history. But Doubleday had marketed the book as a straight nonfiction, which only worsened the controversy. In 1978, novelist and anthropologist Harold Corlander sued Haley for having plagiarized passages from his novel The African, 1967. After a 5-week trial, Haley and Corlander settled out of court, which Haley publicly acknowledged his debt to Corlander, claiming research assistants had given him material from the novel without fully citing its source, and paying him $650,000. The incredible success of Roots, first as a book and then in January 1977, the 12-hour television miniseries seemed to have eased the scorn to plagiarism scandal. Haley's fabrication seemed forgotten in the light of the longevity and popularity of Roots. Roots, the miniseries, had been broadcasting sensation, breaking viewership records as it was watched closely by more than 130 million people over 8 successive nights. Their story clearly had touched a chord in American consciousness, not only among African Americans, but also among Americans of every ethnicity and race. The story dramatized the violence against one group of Americans. This case was only the first of a series of revelations about the questionable research methods used to write Roots. In 1988, novelist Margaret Walker sued Haley, claiming he had plagiarized material from her novel, Jubilee, 1966. That case was dismissed, but in 1984, noted historians Gary Mills and Elizabeth Shone Mills challenged Haley's research, showing that his genealogy was flawed in a number of ways. In 1993, writer Philip Noble published in the weekly newspaper Village Voice an exhaustive investigation into Haley's papers. After Haley's death in 1992 at the University of Tennessee, in the report, Uncovering Roots, Noble details how Haley fabricated much of his family story. The charges against Haley, however, had less effect than critics expected. The book had become a staple in college courses during the late 1970s, and although fewer courses after the controversy listed Roots as required reading, this dip was mostly likely due to the publication of other related works, books that were sparked in part by Roots. Before the arrival of Roots, the book, and the television miniseries, most Americans knew African history only through such caricatures as the Tarzan films, and knew of slave life through works such as Harriet Beecher Stowe's melodramatic novel Uncle Tom's Cabin, or Margaret Mitchell's romantic novel Gone with the Wind, and the 1939 film of the same name. Following Roots, Black history had become an even greater focus of study in colleges and universities nationwide, leading to the further creation of a stream of ethnic history and literature that would flow from writers of all races and ethnicities into the 21st century. Related narratives included Toni Morrison's Pulitzer Prize-winning novel Beloved, which tells the story of a fugitive Kentucky slave in 1851 who kills her baby rather than return to the life of slavery. The National Book Award-winning novel Middle Passage by Charles Johnson, which is a fictionalized account of a journey that captured African slaves were forced to take from their homeland to the Americas, and the National Book Award-winning Slaves in the Family by Edward Ball.
James. James. Your name is Toby. I want to hear you say it. Your name is Toby. You're going to learn to say your name. Let me hear you say it. What's your name?
Kunta Kinte.
When the master gives you something, you take it. He gave you a name. It's a nice name. It's Toby. And it's going to be yours till the day you die. Now, I know you understand me, and I want to hear it. Again! I want to hear you say your name. Your name is Toby. What's your name?
Kunta.
Lord God, help that boy. They're gonna whip him dead.
What's your name? Say it. Toby. Who are you? Say your name. What's your name?
Toby.
Hi. Say it again. Say it louder so they all can hear you. What's your name?
Toby. My name is Toby.
Hi. That's a good nigger. Cut him down.
The truth is, a lot of slave owners were black. There was a lot of black slave owners. So tell me, how did black slave owners get their slaves to be in submission? That's what I'm saying. They depicting us all in the wrong way. They depicting the whole slave era in the wrong way. You know, they have all the timelines mixed up. You know, slavery on the plantation is different from slavery where they took people to South America and, you know, were transferring them back and forth. And it's so crazy how Alex Haley stole a whole book, a fiction book that is, and tried to act like it was non-fiction and try to act like he had genealogy connected to the situation. He really created the biggest lie. And so many people really believe this to this day. A lot of people don't even know that Alex Haley plagiarized this whole book. And we have to reprogram ourselves and reprogram our community. Alex Haley settled a lawsuit yesterday by acknowledging that his world-renowned book Roots contains some material from a relatively unknown novel about slavery that was published 9 years earlier. Can you believe it? The settlement ended the 6-week trial of a suit by Harold Corlander, a 70-year-old author from Bethesda, Maryland, who contended there were substantial similarities between Roots and his earlier novel, The African. He sued in federal district court in Manhattan for more than half the profits of Roots. As the trial was about to reach a climax with summonations by the opposing lawyers, they issued the following statement. This suit has been amicably settled out of court. Alex Haley acknowledges and regrets that various materials from The African by Harold Corlander found their way into his book. Under the agreement to settle, the amount of money that will be paid to Mr. Corlander and his publisher, Crown, was not disclosed, but the nature of the case made it seem likely that the amount would be hundreds of thousands of dollars. Wow. He said various materials found their way into his book. Like they just walked into his book. Alex Haley knew exactly what he was doing when he plagiarized this book. And he knew exactly what they was doing when they created this miniseries. And they try to pump it in our heads that slavery went down like that. The defendants in the suit were Mr. Haley and his publishers, Doubleday and Dell. The American Broadcasting Company, which televised Roots, was dropped as a defendant by mutual agreement earlier in the trial. Roots rapidly became enormously successful after it was published in 1976. It won a Pulitzer Prize, sold millions of copies, and produced a series of television programs that exerted a powerful impact throughout the country. In contrast, The African, in quotes, sold 1,400 copies in hardcover and 130,000 in paperback during the several years after its publication in 1967. Judge Robert J. Ward, who conducted the trial without a jury, proposed a settlement a few weeks ago after Mr. Corlander's lawyer, Robert N. Kaplan, presented the case for the plaintiffs, but the defense lawyers, George Berger and Robert Callagay, rejected the proposal. After the negotiations of the proposal broke down, the defense lawyers moved for a mistrial, arguing that the judge had proposed the wrong thing. A similar case was dismissed last September by another judge, Marvin E. Frankel, who ruled there were only insignificant similarities between Roots and the 1966 novel called Jubilee that had been written by Margaret Walker Alexander, a professor at Jackson State College in Mississippi. The book by Dr. Alexander, who is one of the country's most respected black writers, was based on what she described as the true story of her great-grandmother. She said her book depicted black life in Georgia before, during, and after the Civil War. Her suit, which was filed in Manhattan in April 1977, alleged that the parts of Roots, which had been largely copied from her book. At the same time, Mr. Corlander reported that Roots contained some striking similarities to his book, and he filed his suit the next month. Mr. Corlander is a novelist who has written 27 books, many of them drawing heavily on folklore. He is not black. His book, The African, is a novel that explores the transition of Africans from tribal freedom to plantation slavery. Shortly before both copyright infringement suits were filed, the Sunday Times of London reported that his investigation by Mark Ardaway had raised many questions about the factual basis of the African portion of Mr. Haley's account of his ancestors' journey from what is now Gambia to slavery in America. Listeners and subscribers, be careful what you watch and what you intake. Please make sure that before you go off imagining things that they show you in Hollywood, because in Hollywood they are so off with history. They got the Romans, but that came from the Iroquois. They got the Romans of the West. They got history all twisted. They got all the Highlanders as white people. They so historically wrong. And a lot of these things that we watch are fictional. So be careful what you watch and be careful of the things that you intake before you go imagining stuff like it's factual, like these things really happen, like these events really happen the way that they put it in Hollywood. Hollywood is made to give you imagination, but don't let your imagination go the wrong way. Continue to read books and sources and things that depict the truth before you go off imagining what history looked like based on a movie. It's the end of the video. Thank you for your time. Appreciate you. Please like, please subscribe, please leave a comment, and I'll see you next time. The truth will set you free.